missing the signs I knew. My hands were tied the moment we met, and there was more to you. You were only 17, and that was your secret release. A hostage on a silver plate to you, to you. Those roads we walked, I'll know forever. Those times that we talked, I still remember. Is it not enough that I paid with my heart once, twice? If I'm blind to who you are, which of us was behind bars? Is it not enough that I barely got out with my life? I still carry every scar. Thought I better love you better, 'cause you're all I'm my own safe haven, and it's not the way you believe. And I'm stuck in between what I know and what I feel. Why are we so unsteady, baby? Tell me. And you see right through me, but you still know what I need. Why are we so unsteady? Tell me. Like a single flame, maybe light the way. We don't need to think about who to blame. It's just so complicated. Promises keep breaking, and I hate that you are all I need. And I'm stuck in between what I know and what I feel. Why are we so unsteady, baby? Tell me. And you see right through me, but you still know what I need. Why are we so unsteady?
Hello? 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 Monitor on. Monitor on. Hello? What in the world? Okay, I've never had it echo before. Except when we were doing like the movie on Friday. That's weird. Why is it echoing? Hello? 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 Oh. I think I might have got it. Hello? Did the echo stop? Yay! I think it stopped. Can you hear me now? I feel like I'm in a 90s commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I feel like no matter how loud I turn up my mic, people can't hear me. And like I try to talk loud, but I guess I'm just a quiet person. Anyways, as I was saying, I'm looking forward to getting into more of the story again, and not so much of the, all the laws and stuff, because I feel like those are the boring parts, and it makes it a lot harder to keep reading when those parts are up, because it's just like, you shall do this, you shall not do that, you shall do this, and it just gets so repetitive. So, but I guess the stories have been repetitive too, because think about some of those stories, and a lot of them are worded exactly the same way, or it's just like this constant repetitiveness. So maybe, hopefully, we'll get into a part where it's not always just repeating stuff over and over again. But I very much like reading the stories more, because I feel like that's more of the kind of stuff that I like, as opposed to all the laws and things. But I think it also helps because, being an atheist activist, I should know what's in the Bible, because it's hard. Like, I'm not a debater, I don't plan on debating anybody, but, knowing what's in there can really help me understand where some people come from and why they might believe what they believe. And just knowing what's actually in the Bible, because I feel like a lot of mainstream Christians, or even Sunday Christians, don't even know what it says. And when you bring those things up, they're in complete shock because they haven't read their Bibles and they don't know that these things exist. And I think, if I'm gonna continue to do this, I need to know what things are actually said in there, and not just assume because I've been told. Because when you're in church, you're always told, like, this means this, or, this verse means this, or it connects to God in this way, or it connects to this character in this way, but it's not always the case that way. That's more of just the interpretation of what the pastor has said. And it's much different when you read it and can see it within context and realize that, oh, he took that out of context in order to prove a point and make his sermon work. So I think that's, at least for me, is important. And it's important for me to know what's actually in there. And I don't want to debate people, but if I want to be someone who changes people's minds, then I need to know what they rely on. And I think that's an important part of me reading through the Bible, is because now I can say, yeah, I've read through the Bible. Yes, I know what is in the Bible, and I know what it says and what it doesn't say, and that's why I am who I am today, because I chose through evidence and through my own research that the Bible was not and is not the inspired word of God like I was taught. So I think that's at least important thing for me. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way. But if I'm going to help change minds or help people who want to leave the church or are having doubts, then I need to have that background and just know what it actually says. So anyways, my tangent for today, we're gonna read Leviticus 14 and 15, which is more of the it's like the health stuff again. Like last week we read 12 and 13, and it was a lot about, different health issues you have, and if you have those, then you should take them to the priest, and the priest will look at them, and if there's certain things that it does, then it's a bad skin disease or whatever. And there's, they didn't have doctors back then, so this was the best thing they had in order to figure out medically what was wrong with you. So the priest wasn't just in charge of your spiritual growth and your closeness to God. He was also in charge of medical health and making sure that he kept the camp healthy by telling people with certain skin diseases to leave and go outside the camp so that other people won't get them. Because if there was an outbreak of something, that could kill the entire tribe. And I don't know how big the tribe of Israel was at this time, but I can't imagine that it was huge. So, one person gets something that could kill you off, it would yeah, that's true. I think it's important to me to be an activist, but everybody has their own opinions. What was I saying? Oh, so we have coronavirus today where everybody has to separate and be in quarantine and, vaccines and stuff. And they, that was the best way for them to do it back then, was to just look like that. So this is the best they had, was the priests. I'm glad I live in a day where there's actual medical doctors and they know what's going on. And I mean, they don't always know what's going on, but we have a lot more tools today to figure that stuff out, because it must have been really hard to live back then and not know what you had and not know how to treat it. All right. So we're going to read Leviticus 14 and 15, and I am reading from the NIV if you want to read along. Cleansing from defiling skin diseases. The Lord said to Moses, "These are the regulations for any diseased person at the time of their ceremonial cleansing, when they are brought to the priest. The priest is to go outside the camp and examine them. If they have been healed of their defiling skin disease, the priest shall order 2 clean live birds and some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop to be brought for the person to be cleansed. Then the priest shall order that one of the birds be killed over fresh water in a clay pot. He is then to take the live bird and dip it in, together with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop, into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. 7 times he shall sprinkle the one to be cleansed of the defiling disease, and then proclaim them clean. After that he is to release the live bird into the open fields." Ugh. See, things like that, I have to wonder, would that cause more disease if that bird had some kind of something in its blood, that could be passed to humans? If that could cause even more problems down the line? I don't know enough about, that kind of medical stuff, but there's gotta be issues, because I know we have, issues with, because, I was a janitor in college, and we had to be really careful about cleaning up certain things, because, you can get things from human blood and stuff, so you had to be super careful about that kind of stuff. But I have to wonder if animal blood also could do some damage or some harm to you that way, and being sprinkled on. when you're not, I don't know, it just doesn't, if anything else, even if it's not hygienic to do that, so. The person is to be cleansed, must wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, and bathe with water. Then they will be ceremonially clean. After this, they may come to the camp, but they must stay outside their tent for 7 days. That's a long time. Where are they supposed to sleep? If they can't sleep in their tent, they have to sleep outside for 7 days? In the desert? No, thank you. On the 7th day, they must shave off all their hair. They must shave their hair, their beard, their eyebrows, and the rest of their hair. They must wash their clothes and bathe themselves with water, and then they will be clean. That's a lot of things you have to do in order to be clean. On the 8th day, they must bring 2 male lambs and 1 lamb a year old without defect, along with the 3/10 of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with olive oil for grain offering, and 1 log of oil. The priest who pronounces them clean shall present both the one to be cleansed and their offerings before the Lord to the entrance of the meeting of the tent. Then the priest is to take 1 of the male lambs and offer it as a guilt offering, along with the log of oil. He shall wave them before the Lord as a wave offering. He's to slaughter the lamb in the sanctuary area. Where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered. Like the sin offering, the guilt offering belongs to the priest. It is most holy. The priest is to take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Then the priest shall take some of the log of oil and pour it on the palm of his left hand, dip his right forefinger into the oil in his palm. With his finger, sprinkle some of it before the Lord 7 times. The priest is to put some of the oil remaining in his palm on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of their right hand, and the big toe of their right foot, on top of the blood of the guilt offering. The rest of the oil on his palm the priest shall put on the head of the one to be cleansed, and make atonement for them before the Lord. It is interesting that all of this stuff seems very ceremonial, like it's not just, sacrifice, be done, go to the next person. Like, it's this whole ritual where they have to sacrifice and they have to sprinkle blood and they have to sprinkle oil, and it just kind of makes this whole, like, religion was kind of like the central hub, the religion being their guide and being kind of like their community center. They just did it in ways that we wouldn't find, hygienic and stuff, but that's just how, most cultures lived, I think, is that was their central way of coming together and doing things together. So it's a lot of the ceremony. A lot of the ceremony. When I think of, like, ceremony stuff, I think about, like, Catholics. Because when I grew up Protestant, so, and we were always told, like, that they weren't real Christians because they did all those ceremonies and stuff, which is hilarious because, I mean, there's ceremonies right here in the Bible for the Jewish people, so. Then the priest is to sacrifice the sin offering and make atonement for the one to be cleansed of their uncleanliness. After that, the priest shall slaughter the burnt offering and offer it on the altar, together with the grain offering, and make atonement for them, and they will be clean. If, however, they are poor and cannot afford these, they must take 1 male lamb as a guilt offering to be waved to make atonement for them, together with 1/10 of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering, a log of oil, and 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, such as they can afford, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day they must bring them for their cleansing to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord. The priest is to take the lamb for the guilt offering, together with the log of oil, and wave them before the Lord as a wave offering. He shall slaughter the lamb for the guilt offering, and take some of its blood and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot, 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil in his palm he is to put on the same place that he put the blood of the guilt offering, on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The rest of the oil in his palm the priest shall put on his head of the one to be cleansed, to make atonement for them before the Lord. Then he shall sacrifice the doves or the young pigeons, such as a person can afford, one as a sin offering, the other as a burnt offering, together with the grain offering. In this way the priest will make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one to be cleansed. These are the regulations for anyone who has a defiling skin disease and cannot afford the regular offerings for their cleansing. It is weird because I feel like this is just a repeat. It really is. Because, 13 was about skin diseases, too. And then, the last thing we read last time was about mold, and we're going to get back into cleansing from defiling molds. Alright. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possession, and I put a spreading mold on the house in that land, the owner of the house must go and tell the priest." Oh, so God puts the mold in the house. It literally says that. That's not something I've ever looked at before. Okay, well, at least God owned up to that one. I've seen something that looks like a defiling mold in my house. The priest is to order the house to be emptied before he goes in to examine the mold, so that nothing in the house will be pronounced unclean. After this, the priest is to go in and inspect the house. He's to examine the mold on the walls, and if it has greenish or reddish depressions that appear to be deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest shall go out of the doorway of the house and close it up for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall return to inspect the house. Sorry. Dry throat. If the mold has spread on the walls, he is to order that the condemned stones be torn out and thrown into an unclean place outside the town. He must have all the inside walls of the house scraped and the material that is scraped off dumped into the unclean place outside of town. Then they are to take other stones to replace these, and take new clay and plaster the house. If the defiling mold reappears in the house after the stones have been torn out, and the house is scraped and plastered, the priest is to go and examine it, and if the mold has spread in the house, it is a persistent, defiling mold. The house is unclean. It must be torn down, its stones, timbers, and all the plaster, and taken out of the town to an unclean place. I think closing up a house with mold in it is not a good idea. Because I feel like it would just give it more... What is it? Mold grows in, darkness and... There's that mildew that, grows with it if it's damp. I don't feel like that would help. Anyone who goes into the house while it's closed up will be unclean till evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in the house must wash their clothes. But if the priest comes to examine it, and the mold has not spread after the house has been plastered, he shall pronounce the house clean, because the defiling mold is gone. To purify the house, he's to take 2 birds and cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. He's to kill one of the birds over fresh water in a clay pot. Then he's to take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird, dip them into the blood of the dead bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He's to purify the house with the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. He's to release the live bird into the open fields outside of the town. In this way, he will make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. These are the regulations for any defiling skin disease, for a sore, for defiling molds in fabric or in a house, or for swelling, a rash, or a shiny spot, to determine when something is clean or unclean. These are the regulations for defiling skin disease and defiling molds. It's so weird. Hey, you can have both, right? Just jump back and forth between YouTube and Twitch. It is weird that they just keep repeating things, and that I have to wonder about that with like nice. Hopefully I'm not echoing because you got both on at the same time. What was I saying? Oh, just the constant like repetitiveness. I feel like I did read somewhere that like a lot of this stuff was written. Good choice. A lot of this stuff was written by different different people, but they kind of had different ideas on things, and they might have had the same idea on certain things, but we know that changes over time with different people. So you have to wonder if people were just trying to undo what other people were doing and redo what other people were doing, and that's why we get this constant repetitiveness, because it's always different people. And I know over time, like, the Bible's been changed. People wanted to go back and change it, they could. I mean, there was a long time when they weren't even allowed to read the Bible. Like, I remember when we were learning history in school, and they were talking about, like, even the Catholic Church, like, they wouldn't let you have an actual Bible. Like, you had to go to church to, know what it actually said. And I just think about that now, and think about all the things we have now that, like, show us that there's things in the Bible that aren't true, and there's still people who follow it, and there's still people who believe in it, even when we have it in our own houses and our ability to look at it and say, oh yeah, this goes against science, or oh yeah, this goes against what archaeology says, or this goes against what history says. It's fascinating to me in a day and age where we have so many resources at our fingertips, and we're able to actually, seek out answers and be curious and, find out if what we're told is truth is actually truth. And, we have the ability to have more than one Bible in our house. And, I have several different Bibles, and I have several different versions. And you can even, like, get it to listen to on, Kindles and things like that, too. So it's just fascinating to me, because in the past, people didn't have access to these words. They didn't have access to what it actually said and what it actually meant. And now we live in a time where we do have that, and we have the ability to make sure that what it's saying is true. But a lot of people still cling to those superstitions and cling to those, I don't know, false promises of something better to come in the future from a book that has been very much disproven throughout time. It is a struggle in my mind to really think about that, but I also think about the fact that when I was a Christian, I fought very hard not to find those truths. I fought very hard not to find out that my religion might be fake, because it's scary. I get that. Like, I don't, for a long time I resisted looking into Christianity because I didn't want to know that it wasn't true. I didn't want to know that I wasted my life on something that I honestly believed with my whole heart. And I didn't want to think that I had been lied to. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm the one who has to make the decision if I think it's true or not. And for me, truth is truth. Like, if the Bible is true, it's gonna have something to back it up. It's gonna have, science, archaeology, all these things. Like, God's not gonna write all these things down and then completely wipe out all that evidence if he really wants people saved. And for me, looking into that evidence and realizing that there's really not much there that can prove that these things actually happened, and that a lot of the things I was told growing up, they might not have been lies, but they weren't 100% truths, And I know for me, finding truth was very freeing, and it's hard to describe, but not being caught up in a system that you felt like you were never good enough for. That's how I always felt when I was a Christian, is that, I was never going to be good enough. There were unrealistic standards in the Bible that I felt I couldn't live up to, even though, people were saying, all you have to do is pray a prayer and you'll go to heaven, but that was never reassuring to me because I never felt like making that decision was all there was to it, And biblically, that's not what it says either. There's a lot of, biblically, there's a lot of problems biblically about heaven and everything, but I just felt like there was an unrealistic standard that you had to stick to, and that really damaged me and really hurt me, and really, even to this day, like, I can see the effects. I've been out of the church for like 4 or 5 years, and I still can see the effects that the church has on me. And I have to take baby steps and slowly untangle that web that has been created in my mind because of that. But I do think it's dangerous, and it's especially dangerous. I don't want to say just for girls, but from my perspective, it puts girls at a disadvantage when you're taught that your whole life is for God and that everything you do has to be for him, and you have to find a godly man and you have to marry him and you have to have kids, and that's your duty. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to grow up, get married, have kids, and then live with your husband for the rest of your life. And I guess for me, that was kind of just the path that was set out for me, and I never really had a clear path of what I actually wanted to do in life because I was so focused on what I thought God wanted me to do that everything else got pushed out of the way, which wasn't great for me because I never, I guess, had time to like explore who I was and find my individuality and find out who I wanted to be. And now, being outside the church, I can see how dangerous that is, because you get these women that get into these, godly relationships or whatever, and then if those fall apart, what do you do? Because you're stuck in this place where you don't know what to do anymore, because everything that you were told that was going to happen ends up falling apart, and then you're trapped. And I guess for me, I really appreciate that I can do this, and there are other things that I'm finding in my life that I want to do, and I appreciate that I can do them. And the only way I had freedom to do these things was to leave religion and to leave things behind that weren't being truthful with me and that were harming me mentally and harming me in a way that I didn't even see they were harming me and holding me back from, the potential that I had. It didn't matter that I was a woman. It didn't matter that, yeah, it really does. There's a lot of ill effects from it. And now looking at it, I can see that I don't have to hide. I don't have to follow this path that was put in front of me. I can change things in my own life because it's my life and I'm able to do that. And I think that's a big thing for me because I feel like most of my life I wasn't, living my life because everything was all wrapped up in, the church and God and what I thought He wanted from me. And it really took me down a bad path. And now that I'm on this new path, it is still a struggle every day, but it's less of a struggle, and it's allowed me to be, I feel like, a better person and someone who can actually, talk about those things and realize that there's a lot of danger in religion and, not critically thinking about things like you said. It is dangerous, and I want more people to know that because I don't want more people getting into any religion, not just Christianity, but any of these religions that make women less or make anyone less. Christianity is very misogynistic, and it's very, men are on top and they're the ones who make all the rules and they're the ones who are closest to God and all this stuff, but making women less is not okay, and I don't want anyone to feel like that, especially women in the church, because I feel like a lot of women in the church become doormats because they're not properly taught how to be a person and how to have their own, ways of thinking and ways of life, because you are put on this path to do what God wants you to do, and that's it. So, anyways, get back to the Leviticus stuff. I want to learn more about discharges causing uncleanliness. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Ugh. I'm ready to be done with medical stuff because it's kind of gross. This is why I can't be a nurse. I am not okay with nasty stuff like this. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has an unusual body discharge, such a discharge is unclean. Whether it continues flowing from his body or is blocked, it will make him unclean. This is how his discharge will bring about uncleanliness." Ugh. Any bed the man with the discharge lies on will be unclean. Anything he sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. Whoever touches the man who has a discharge must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. If the man with the discharge spits on anyone who is clean, they must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. Everything the man sits on when writing will be unclean, and whoever touches any of the things that were under him will be unclean till evening. Whoever picks up those things must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. do wonder about the until evening thing. Like, why would you not be unclean for just the rest of that day? Is it just till nighttime? I guess they did things differently, though, back then, because I remember them talking about, different days had different times and things. Especially when they're talking about, like, Jesus' resurrection, because they were talking about sunset was, like, the end of the day, if I was right. I need to talk to some of my Jewish friends or people who know that stuff. I hope one day that I can actually, like, talk to a rabbi. That is something I want to do for one of my videos, is just talk to an actual Jewish rabbi about, what they think about the Messiah and things like that. The Messiah. Because that's a whole other topic, but I don't know, just talking to them about this kind of stuff too is just knowing their perspective on it, because I don't know their perspective on a lot of things. And the things I was told in the church, I know aren't true, because they're trying to get us to convert Jews. Anyone the man with a discharge touches without rinsing his hands with water must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. A clay pot that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he's to count off 7 days for his ceremonial cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with fresh water, and come before the Lord to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the priests. The priest is to sacrifice them. Oh, I totally skipped a line, didn't I? I was like, something's wrong. On the 8th day he must take 2 doves and 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the priest. The priest is to sacrifice them, one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. In this way he will make atonement before the Lord for the man because of his discharge. When a man has an emission of semen, he must bathe his whole body with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Any clothes or leather that his semen is on must be washed with water, and he will be unclean until evening. When a man has sexual relations with a woman, and there's an emission of semen, both of them must bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. When a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water. They will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches anything she sits on will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. Whether it's the bed or anything she will sit on, anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. If a man has sexual relations with her, and her monthly flow touches him, he is unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. Oh my goodness. When a woman has discharge of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, or has discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge, just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean, as is her bed during her monthly period. Anytime she sits, she will be unclean, as during her period. Anyone who touches them will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. When she's cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days, and after she will be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day she must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest is to sacrifice one for the sin offering and the other for the burnt offering. In this way he will make atonement for her before the Lord for the uncleanliness of her discharge. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that will make them unclean, so they will not die in their uncleanliness for defiling my dwelling place, which is among them. These are the regulations for a man with discharge, for anyone made unclean by an emission of semen, for a woman on her monthly period, for a man or woman with a discharge, and for a man who has sexual relations with a woman who is ceremonially unclean. Dun, dun, dun. I really don't like reading that. I don't know. I'm just like not a medical person. I don't like reading about medical stuff, even though I know it's like sometimes it's necessary for, you know, if you have a doctor or something, but just putting that in a book is just, unless it's a medical book, like it seems, I don't know, it's weird. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know. Well, hopefully that's all of the, well, probably not because it's Leviticus. I think Leviticus has a lot of, you know, those rules and regulations. But I guess we'll see tomorrow what else we get to hear about. Hopefully no more of that. So I said I'd very much like the stories better. Because even if they repeat, like, at least there's just things there that you can think about. As opposed to this is like, do not do this, do this, do not do this. And that just gets boring after a while. I remember reading, like, we got to Leviticus when we were in our young adult group, and we were the same way. We read through the first couple chapters, and we were all just like, this is... Sorry, big truck. This is pointless. Like, we're not getting anything out of this other than, you know, God telling people to do and do not, but because we're Christians, we're like, this doesn't apply to us, so why are we reading it? I often do wonder, like, because I know originally a lot of Christians said they didn't want the Old Testament in the Bible because they didn't feel like it did them any good. Because a lot of the the Christians' real book is the New Testament because it's all about, you know, who they believe was the Messiah and the Savior. Even though he didn't do any of the things that the Messiah was supposed to do, and he wasn't supposed to be like a savior to everyone. He was supposed to be a savior for the Jewish people, so. But it does make you wonder, because I know there were some Christians in the beginning that were like, we need to get rid of the Old Testament. And if that had happened, you have to wonder what kind of... Because, I mean, the Old Testament still would have been around for the Jewish people, because they have all that. But if Christianity was just taught from the New Testament, I would wonder how that would change things, and if that would change people's views about who Jesus was and some of the things he said. I don't know, it would be interesting. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff that Christians say Jesus did or said or whatever doesn't line up with the Old Testament at all, so... But Jesus was also a Jew, and he would not agree with any of the Christians today. You know, a lot of the stuff that people cling onto in the New Testament is from Paul, and Paul had a very different idea of what Jesus wanted, and he never actually met the real Jesus, so... I don't know if I've done a video on Paul. I should do a video on Paul. I did one on David. Maybe I'll just make... I was going to make a series about different biblical characters, and I started with David, but... I guess I did Samson too, but that was my absurd stuff, because that was an absurd story. Yeah. Now my brain's going in like 10 different directions because I'm like, how would the Bible be different if we didn't have the Old Testament in it? and that, Christians hadn't taken Old Testament prophecies and yeah, I knew there was some. I can't remember the name of the guy, but there was one guy who he didn't want the Old Testament, and he also said, like, he didn't think Jesus came from the same God of the Old Testament because the Old Testament God was so, like, wrathful and hateful and just didn't put up with people's crap. And he thought that Jesus had come from a different God, a more loving God, and had come to save people from that wrathful God. But that's a whole different theology. There's so many different theologies. If you look back at even like the original Christians, they don't believe the same things that Christians believe today. Like, you can see over time, if you actually like read about Christians, and over time you can see how it slowly evolved into what we have today, and how it went from being a very Jewish, still following the laws. In Leviticus is a sacrifice of the second in the manner. I don't know what you're asking, Wesley. Sacrifice of the second? What's the sacrifice of the second? I don't know what he's asking. I would try to answer him if I knew, but I don't know. The sacrifice is the bad. Okay. I don't know what the second is. I was not taught that. I was gonna say to me it's not making sense because I don't know what he's talking about in the first place. So I don't have a problem with theists. Like, I just if they start their conversations with things I know nothing about, it makes it harder to decipher what they actually want. Like you said, it makes it harder to understand what they're trying to get at. Um, I don't know what I was. Oh, the different sects of Christianity. Yeah. There were a lot of different ideas in Christianity in the beginning. There were a lot of different ideas in Judaism too. I think religion in general, everybody has their own ideas, and everybody's going to have their own interpretations of things, and everybody's going to have their own thoughts about what they think God is, because everybody's different, and we all think differently, and we all have different ideas of things. Okay. But yeah, I'll just be glad to get through Leviticus. I'm ready to get back to story stuff. But I don't know if Numbers has a lot of the. And Deuteronomy. We might just be in the boring parts for a while. Maybe we'll get some more fun things over time. I feel like I should, like, I don't know, definitely think about some of these things and think about, you know, videos and stuff that could be put out about that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's like the boring stuff I don't want to put videos out for. But I know a lot of people want to read through the Bible, and doing it this way, it helps me because it holds me accountable. And, you know, people who actually want to read along and hear it, like, it kind of holds them accountable in the way that they're able to, you know, get on here every day and read. And I enjoy it, and I enjoy having my friends in the chat, and you guys are awesome. I've almost been on here for an hour. Oh my goodness. Well, I think that's about all I have today. Tomorrow we'll read again in Leviticus. And yeah, I'm on Twitch. Overprotected Atheist on Twitch. Overprotected Atheist on YouTube. I do a lot of animations and some live streams there. But I mostly like the animating stuff. But I'm trying to do more live things too. And I'm trying to, I don't know, make more like live, not like live videos, but recorded videos. So I don't know, I think having a mix is good for people, because some people like the live videos, some people like the, you know, actual recorded videos, and some people like the animation. So just do a mix of all that stuff over there. You can find, I don't know, information about me, books I've read, my Teespring store, things like that on overprotectedatheist.com. And trying to think, Instagram, overprotectedatheist. I'm on Twitter at op_atheist if you want to come visit me over there and talk to me. Yeah. Thank you all for coming and reading the Bible with me. I will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock to read Leviticus, the next part. Yeah, probably. I like going into different people's chats and just talking. And I have a lot of friends in the atheist community, so it's nice to get on there and talk to people I know and, you know, just have that community. It's super nice and I like it. And I hope you found that too in the chats over there. So until tomorrow, everybody have an awesome day. Bye.